What's up, everybody? John Delarose here, the leading Hispanic voice in science fiction, with another epic collection review, this time The Root of Evil, Daredevil. This is volume 19, covering Daredevil 333 to 344, and Elektra, Root of Evil 1 through 4, which is a miniseries that kind of ties up loose ends from the Fall from Grace deal from before. So we reviewed volume 18, Fall from Grace. Before this, there's a nice run of epics 18 through 21, which bring Daredevil from that 90s period where he had his armored costume to the end of when they kind of chopped it off and then rebooted with an all-new number one. So you can go through that. What's cool is you can go through that. You can go through then Marvel Knights Omnibus, which is by Joe Quesada. It's mostly the beginning of a Daredevil run. And then you can get the Omnibus Bendis Volume 1, Omnibus Bendis Volume 2, Omnibus Brubaker Volume 1, Omnibus Brubaker Volume 2, Daredevil Shadowlands, and then Omnibus Wade Volume 1, then Omnibus Wade Volume 2. And you have from this Volume 18 through all these omnibu. Omar likes to call it omnibu, so we'll go with that. You have this like huge stretch of Daredevil you can read pretty much uninterrupted, which is pretty great. So pretty fun. I've decided to engage upon that, starting with that Fall from Grace storyline. Prior to that, they've got a couple, I think volume 15's out, so you're missing 2 in between there. So that's why I started with 18 to go forward. Plus, this was just recently done on the Epic Marvel podcast, so I started at 18 to kind of catch up to Root of Evil here. Now, this is what was one of those quad printing books, and quad printing is notorious for their bad print jobs. As you can see, the spine, they kind of screwed up with the printing right here, and so the spine doesn't go all the way to the spine like they needed extra space there, and so the cover wraps around, and so it looks kind of funky on your shelf. You don't see it too much, but it's still an obnoxious print error. There's a couple other print errors in here, but they also use really cheap paper overall. They're known for having glue problems, so I was very careful with this book going through, turning very gingerly. So Daredevil's still in his armor costume after Fall from Grace and all that. And we start out with a 5-part storyline with a completely different art and writing team from the last one, where Daredevil basically goes to this like underground area, and there's these like hobos living there and all that. And there's this weird character, the King, who's like a kingpin, but in the sewer, I guess. And he is rabble-rousing down there. There's some murders going on, and Daredevil has to fight this King character. The King appeared in like one issue of Daredevil Frank Miller comics, and that's it. Now, as much as this is kind of maybe not the greatest art, because you got this like muted color palette here, which I guess I don't mind. It actually works well for the sewers because you're dark and in a dark area. But it doesn't elicit like real fear or humor overall. Maybe a little humor in that, but there's no humor in here. And so it doesn't quite work with the storyline all that well. And you get some weird panels like that. But that's what's going on. It's still way more enjoyable, and the Kingpin's back, and he's manipulating stuff. It's still way better than that Fall from Grace thing. I mean, I just like, I could read this storyline, and I understood what was going on. I had a lot of trouble with that Fall from Grace storyline. And then you get a little teaser for this Elektra miniseries, which is kind of neat that they have that in here, and then you ramp up to the Elektra series. So this series keeps going on. Daredevil's still in down below, and we get a couple side storylines kind of building a little bit with Karen Page and all that. At some point, he checks in on Foggy just to remind you that Foggy exists. And we get an Elektra preview, full on at the end of this issue here, which has nothing to do with the Daredevil storyline, but does lead into the Elektra deal. And it's okay. It's just like a non-memorable storyline that is like okay to read. There's these hobos. They don't really want Daredevil around at first. Then they kind of realize, oh, he's actually here trying to do good and protect us. And Daredevil has to fight all these monsters off down there. And it turns out like one of the Marvel superheroes, Deathlock, is down here and is one of the hobos. Deathlock, had his own series for a little bit in the 90s. Very weird, random appearance showing up here. And then we get another Elektra preview. And I don't know. It's just not that interesting of a storyline. I guess the most important part is Wilson Fisk, the Kingpin, is trying to reestablish himself as a crime lord. And so he's trying to blame crimes on these sewer people. Daredevil's trying to rescue them, etc. And then we get into the root of evil. This is a storyline. These were done in those like fancy covers, and I think they had like foil and all that crap on it in the real 90s versions. Marvel was really trying to like make these like fancy miniseries, kind of like DC Vertigo, and be a little more I don't know, high end and what you want to call it, literary. And so you get the same team that did Fall from Grace, and oddly, like the art is way different looking than Fall from Grace. It's a lot easier to follow in this, though I still find the writing kind of scattered and jumping around because you're going back and forth between different timelines. They try to show you different times and places, both with these weird borders and things like that. And basically, it's Elektra's past, and she's like trying to get away from this ninja group, start her own ninja group in the future, and her past kind of comes back to bite her. You learn of her father, who kind of like blamed her for her mother's death a little bit, and she was then thrust into this like whole ninja thing. So I mean, some of the art here, just like I still can't stand it. I really don't understand what's going on. What is this? And they're super oversized, and so I really struggled to get through this. The storyline was really didn't matter to Daredevil whatsoever. I think he appears on like 1 or 2 pages, and you get some Elektra past stuff, which I guess is okay, but you get these characters that were only referenced in Fall from Grace, the Snake Root, there, yeah. And they're trying to hunt down some people. Elektra's trying to hunt them down. It goes back and forth. Now you get a really weird quad printing thing. Now, right in the middle of this issue, the pages switch to these, like, you can tell, you see how the gloss is different here, just from the paper? They're like normal glossy paper, and then it's to super glossy paper. And it's like they tacked on a few extra pages, and then it goes back to normal pretty shortly. So it's like they ran out of paper or something like that. I don't know what happened there. Very bizarre. But that's what Quad Graphics did with these printings. So very, very poorly constructed book overall. And yeah, the storyline just was not all that interesting. It's something you could definitely skip. If you just wanted to read the regular Daredevil storyline, I don't think you'd miss anything here. I don't think anybody really ever references this stuff again. There are extra page. I think each one is 32 or 40 pages per issue. Oh, we're done. Okay, cool. And that's it. So that's the Elektra miniseries. I never have to see that creative team again. Bye. That's all I have to say about that. Now we get like sort of rotating creative teams, as they don't really seem to know what they're doing with Marvel Daredevil at this point. It seems to be in a flux, I guess you want to call it. And in this one, while the figures are okay and the storytelling's okay, like just not enough detail really here. For a professional Marvel comic, it really seems like they put their B team on Daredevil here as it came back, and Fisk is kind of making his way back in, and that's about it. There's a mystery. So this storyline is there's this guy Cruel, Kruel, and I guess he was an employee of the Kingpin. Starts here, and he's coming back to kill people because he's mad, and he's killing everybody who was kind of a witness to the Kingpin sort of debacle with him. And that's it. And this is actually the best storyline in this book, even though the art is not my favorite. Alexander Durbin, I don't know who that is. I don't even know who Alan Smithy, the writer, is. I thought the storyline was actually pretty interesting. The art is just not up to par. At least you can understand what's going on, though, I guess, as this goes through. And as Daredevil tries to find out what's going on and figure out the mystery of this Cruel guy. Now, eventually, he teams up with the Kingpin, and the Kingpin makes him realize that things are not what they seem with this guy, and they team up to kind of take down Cruel a little bit, even though Daredevil doesn't really like it. But Cruel's really cruel, believe it or not. And there's a bizarre part where he kills a former girlfriend of Daredevil and just like throws her out a window, and you see her splat on the ground. It was like, whew, a little jarring. And I wasn't sure that was super necessary for the story. Gets a little dark. Is this the same artist? I mean, it's just like, this detail is just like, it feels like somebody just sloppily inked on here. Maybe it's the inking. I don't know if it, I shouldn't always blame the penciler. No, it's somebody else this time. So we got Keith Pollard and Art Nichols on this one. This is actually, the art's gotten worse since the last issue, as they're trying to wrap up this storyline, I guess. I don't know why they couldn't keep an artist on through this whole storyline, but here we go. Daredevil and the Kingpin, and this is where they kind of talk it out and realize that Cruel's actually the problem, and they need to take him down. Kingpin's back in full force. He's fighting Cruel. Daredevil's like, I'm not going to let you kill him anyway. And then eventually he goes splat just like he splatted the girlfriend in a couple issues ago. So I guess that's a, full circle. I guess the writing's okay. Like I said, I like the writing on this. Art is pretty bad. Writing's good. And then we get 343. What happens here? We have like a weird issue where Warren Ellis wrote this, and Matt Murdock thinks he's going insane, and he's got this new Daredevil persona he's trying to be, and he's just a little harsher than before. Just odd, and he just did one issue. And then we get a crossover. This is Over the Edge, and Over the Edge does not really, they're making it sound like it pertains to Murdock and Daredevil, but it's really about Punisher, and Punisher is going after Nick Fury. And we see Daredevil looking harsh too. J.M. DeMatteis wrote this, and I really like his writing. This storyline's really good. I haven't read all the Punisher stuff that ties into this, but this is a part 2 of a Punisher story, and Daredevil really just like plays a small part in it here. But the art's better. I like what J.M. DeMatteis is doing with Daredevil on the parts that are Daredevil. So this was a pretty good issue, despite it not really having too much to go on. And as you see, he changes his costume back to this yellow one at the end from the Armored, which I guess is going to be a big plot point of the next volume. So that's it. We get a afterword by Ralph Macchio talking about how great these storylines are. Yeah, they're not. And that's it. This is not as bad as whatchamacallit, though, Fall from Grace. Fall from Grace was almost entirely unreadable. At least the ones I wasn't super into the stories, and maybe the art was a little subpar, were readable. And the Elektra miniseries was kind of unreadable, but his art was a little bit better than it was in the prior volume. So I gave that one a 2 out of 10, just for trying, I guess. And this one, I guess I'll go with a 4 out of 10. So eminently skippable stuff, but I'm doing this whole read of that whole Daredevil deal all the way from 18 to all these omnibuses. So there we go. I hope you enjoy this. If you like my Epic Collection reviews, subscribe, leave a comment down below what you think of Root of Evil, if you're going to even bother reading it. And that's it. I'll see you guys soon.